Welcome to Thanks for Visiting, a podcast that's part conversation, part time capsule. I'm your podcast host, Lex. In these minutes and moments, I'm sitting down with people I deeply respect and admire to explore life, the human experience, and the creative spirit. Together, we're creating our visitor records, snapshots of our existence and contributions while we're visiting here on planet Earth. Let's help each other navigate this wild human adventure called life. On this episode of Thanks for Visiting, I'm back with Katie, and we wanted to extend a massive thank you for visiting and thank you for listening. We are here recording in November of 2025, and we have made it a year of the podcast, Katie.
It's amazing.
We want to thank all of you who have tuned in and taken a chance with this passion project podcast. And we salute you for being curious minds in this wild adventure we call life and exploring elements of the human condition, emotional maturity, and well-being. Yeah, Katie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, if you're listening, thank you. And I think today you are in for a treat because we are talking about healthy escapism, ways to escape this crazy reality that aren't destructive.
Amen. We're coming to the end of this year, and at the end of every year, people are like, it's been a year. I can't wait for next year. Next year is going to be my year. And then I thought, but what if this is just life and adulthood? Is the ebbs and flows, the seasons of spring, summer, fall, winter, and using that metaphorically, the seasons of our life where there's more blooming, like spring, some of the seeds that you've planted are now blossoming. The summer where it's warm and blooming and maybe life feels a bit more like a vacation. Fall, I'm not sure what the metaphors for fall would be, but then I very much know the metaphors of the winter season where it's cold, maybe even the need for more like hibernation. Maybe a little bit of a darker season. There's less light in the day. We would like to recognize anyone who's been going through a winter season. And I think we've been looking at a micro level of like, when I say micro level, like our own personal, yourself, your family, and then a macro level, what's going on in the world. Even though we might not discuss a lot of what's going on, politics or the economy or cultural events, that is somewhat intentional because we want the podcast not to be divisive, number one, but we also want it to be more of an internal exploration. The stuff on the macro level, there's a lot that I think we feel very helpless on. That doesn't mean there's not certain things we can do to impact that, but I've always been a big believer that change starts from within. So if we're not even looking at within, we are definitely not going to change anything beyond us.
Well said. Very well said.
So with that said, we've been in it. It's been a year. I think a lot of people can relate. So we wanted to talk about how do we cope with this? And the word healthy escapism came up in conversation. So yeah.
So as we get started talking about healthy escapism, there's a term that's important for us to define, and it's called hedonic adaptation. It's also often referred to as the hedonic treadmill. So hedonic adaptation is the psychological phenomena where people tend to return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative life changes.
Okay.
So, example, when a good thing happens, maybe you get a raise, you're happy for a period of time, and then after a bit, your body, brain, soul level sets back to your base level.
Like a homeostasis.
Yeah, I love that. And similarly, like with a negative event, people often adapt emotionally and return to their usual mood level. So when we talk about healthy escapism, something we always want to keep in mind is how can we reduce our hedonic adaptation? We want to stay happier longer. So is part of that you rewiring maybe some neuroplasticity in there? Is it getting a new perspective? There's all kinds of things you can do at like a really deep soul level to reduce your hedonic adaptation. So I kind of wanted to level set us there, and then we could talk about examples and how they relate to this.
Yes.
See what we learn.
So if I'm understanding correctly, we're like fighting this cycle of the highs and the lows, right?
Example, if I just had a little more money, then I would be happy. If I just got a new car, then I would be happy. If I just got this project done, then I'll be happy. If my husband just gets a job, then I'll be happy.
It makes me think of the carrot dangling in front of the rabbit.
Yes.
It's walking forward, but the carrot is moving with it because it's attached. That is very important, I think, to acknowledge the I will be happy once XYZ happens.
When I lose 20 pounds, I will be happy.
Once I have this much saved, I will be happy, or I will feel safe.
Once I build my own house, then I will be happy.
Once I write that song I've been destined to write and it just resonates with the world, then I'll be happy.
Once I sell my art to the distributor I want it to go to, then I will be happy. And none of this is true because our brains, according to hedonic adaptation, no matter how good, they will go back to that base level mood. Mm-hmm. So if you want that base level mood to be higher, you've got to do some different work. And the exterior things that happen to you are less important.
Mm-hmm. I've also heard it stated that once you reach a goal that you've been trying to reach, the excitement of that lasts a little bit, but then it's like you go back to that baseline and then you look at, well, what's the next goal? And so it's constantly this mountain and plateau, which I think is good if we're looking at it from a place of knowing and growing. But if we're doing that as I have to get there to be happy, the there to be happy is always shifting.
I agree 100%, and I've got a great example to share with you. There's a guy named Mark Manson. He is an author, a blogger, and he's like a thought leader in the personal development space. And I get his newsletter, and one that was sent earlier this month says, "You'd think selling 20 million books makes you satisfied with life. It doesn't." I started blogging in 2007. For the next 9 years, I woke up every morning and chased the dream of making money online. More than 3,000 mornings in a row, I woke up inside a trash compactor. The only way to keep the walls from crushing me was to succeed, but for years they kept closing in. Then in 2016, I published The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. I held my breath. It started out okay, landed on the New York Times bestseller list, quickly fell off. But months later, something happened. The audiobook took off. Then it got huge in Australia, then in the UK. Then it landed on the Times list, was selling 10,000 copies a week, then 20,000, then 30,000. By mid-2017, my book was number one literally everywhere. 12 different countries by my count. I was living my dream. But here's what nobody tells you about achieving your dream. The next morning, you wake up without a dream.
There's almost like a deficit right after, or like a massive come down from a high.
Absolutely. And obviously, I've not done anything as wildly successful as he has, but I've done big projects. And I remember when they're over, you go through, you could call it a depression.
I've heard that a lot.
So Mark, at the end of this newsletter, he says, it's great to achieve your dreams, but make sure you've diversified your dreams enough across enough areas of your life so that you never wake up one day without one. So little plug for Mark Manson. Go check him out. Join his newsletter. It's a great weekly thing to have in your inbox. And usually they're really short reads.
I like the idea of diversifying your goals. It reminds me of a conversation I had with a peer of mine within the music industry where he co-wrote a song that went like 8 times platinum. And he was like, I've been learning that that is what's like considered a once in a lifetime achievement. So where do you go from there? Is he supposed to just keep chasing the next 8 times, 9 times, 10 times platinum song? And so when he mentioned this to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like we chase these achievements or goals like that. And I think it is really good to put some big lofty ones on that. When you read about goal setting, they say if your goals don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. So I'm all for it. But to me, it just sounds like we're back to like this idea of emotional regulation, like how to regulate with the highs and the lows.
And having some healthy ways to escape. And sometimes the escape is going to lead, as you'll see in some of our examples, is going to lead to something bigger than just like a momentary escape. So maybe some of these will actually speak to what you're talking about too.
I love it. I agree with you because I think healthy escapism provides a necessary reprieve. The mind needs a break to actually create and innovate.
And you know what I'll say is when you think about healthy escapism and you go, well, what's healthy? That's actually going to be relative to what it's up against. I'll give you an example of mine.
Great.
This is going to sound so silly to people, but I'm fairly picky about what I consume. So like for me, judge me all you want, sparkling water is sometimes a treat.
Totally.
However, when I'm in a deep, dark pit, I have some Mountain Dew in my water fridge that I'm like, you know what? I'm doing the dew right now. So compared to driving off of a cliff, Mountain Dew is healthy escapism for me. But maybe that's not something I would choose normally to drink every day because it has too much sugar for what my system is capable of digesting properly.
I'm glad you mentioned that because later as an advocate, a one-on-one advocate with youth, one of the things I learned in our training was some of our youth, we might recognize their coping skills as not the healthiest. I think the easy go-tos would be substance-related, drinking, smoking, drugs. And so on the outside, you might see someone using a substance and think that that is not healthy, but there was this principle of like, if that is what keeps them alive right now, today, as long as they're alive, we still have a chance to teach someone new skills.
100%.
It was very eye-opening to me because I've never been someone that goes to substances as a form of escapism. And so I never want to be someone who speaks into that very much because that's not my struggle. And I'm very grateful for that. But just because that might be their route, that's not for me to judge. But whatever is keeping your feet on the ground is important. We want to recognize that. And I love that you pointed that out, Katie. There's different layers to healthy, and I think it's very individual. Like with what I know, if I started reaching for a substance and that was never my escapism, that indicates a problem for me. Whereas for someone else, that could be progress.
Exactly.
If they grab a cigarette
Yes.
versus a pipe, that could be progress for them.
Right. So there's no judgment here. So that's why we can't define what healthy escapism is because it depends on the individual.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few.
Yeah.
This is going to sound lame to some people, so if this is not for you, no worries. But having a goal, one that feels impressive to you, can be very motivating. I'll give you the example of the one that recently kind of helped me through a very stressful time. So I've had an extremely stressful few weeks. I would say I've got 4 level 10 stressors going on in my life right now, so lots of life-threatening things. And, I try to turn to my art whenever I can. And I thought, I need a bigger goal with regard to that. What could it be? And my husband was like, would you want to maybe take some art classes? Because I literally have taken very, very few art classes in my life. I said, I love that idea. And then my ADHD brain goes, I'm going to get my MFA.
I support it.
I jump to the biggest thing possible and I'm like, all right, okay, that's okay. Good. MFA is a good goal. Back it up from there because you can't just jump into that. So I found this place online called the New Masters Academy. It's got these great different tracks you can take for different art specialties, and they literally start at the beginning. Like they're explaining to you what a charcoal pencil is. And so I said, okay, this is going to be my plan. I'm going to start with New Masters Academy. Then if I like that and I feel like I can get all the fundamentals there, then I'll look into the post-bac. And if that goes well, then I'll go MFA. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got this great long path ahead of me. And it's going to take me years to complete this, which is exactly what I need. We're not completely done with the hard season yet, but right now I'm collecting all the supplies I need. Learning something new, but having structure and a long-term path goal to something that maybe makes you a little bit excited or giddy can be a great form of healthy escapism.
I agree, and I like that because it makes me think of the word vision. You're giving yourself a vision of where you are and where you could go. A lot of my examples will be things that are based on the day. It is not a routine practice, but one of mine is cuddling up with Charlie, my dog, and smelling him, his little ears, and I just put my face against his face and I smell him. And I'm realizing that a form of healthy escapism that works for me is scent. To me, I like sweeter smells like vanilla. And there's something very comforting about that. It makes me think of Christmas time, holiday time, when people have warm sugar cookie smells. I'm like, oh, it just feels like warmth and goodness. But part of that is when I'm snuggled with Charlie, I'm thinking about my future with me and my family, thinking of very simple things, like one day having a home and seeing Charlie run around in a bigger yard, or maybe having chickens or something, but just letting my mind wander. And talking with my therapist lately, just kind of letting your mind wander into a dream landscape. That can be a healthy form of escapism. And just like a lot of things, anything can be taken too far, right? I don't ever want to just live totally in a fantasy land and never grounded in reality and then move into a delusional state. But for me lately, I've been operating super left-brained with analytical work. And my therapist told me that anxiety lives in the left brain. It's the analysis paralysis, the constantly tick, 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 going through all of the information. I'm discovering there's a little imbalance. I'm a little imbalanced with the two sides of the brain right now. And it's actually leading to things like migraines and anxiety. So just giving myself the permission to dream and fantasize, whatever, that's always a little of a sexy word, but to just let my mind drift. I even read something recently about, for creativity and boosting that, just letting yourself daydream. I'm like, daydream, that's something I did in high school when I was bored in class. When is the last time I just let myself drift off and daydream?
I realized that something I hadn't done in the past 5 years was wear my headphones, listen to music while doing something like running.
Preach.
I used to go down to the trail all the time, and I would be running and I would be dreaming and I would be running and I would be dreaming and dreaming and dreaming and running. Or Zumba, I used to do that all the time. I'd be Zumba, dancing and dreaming at the same time. And I realized that there's some magical combination with movement and music together, for my brain anyway, that lets me go off into that state of, it's almost like a visualization and dreaming together.
Totally.
You better believe that's going to be one of my 2026 resolutions.
Same. We can be accountability partners on it, because everything you're saying, I'm picking up. When you mentioned putting on headphones and running, I was like, I used to do that too. But earlier this year, in our first episode, little plug for that if you haven't listened to it yet, really good, kind of comprehensive, sets you up for what the whole podcast is going to be. But I mentioned how I've backed off running because I was healing from some adrenal fatigue stuff, and I didn't want to continue putting myself in fight-flight mode. I wanted to focus more on strength and building my bone density. So I shifted away from running, And I'm really craving it again, Katie, because I would put in headphones. I love curating a good playlist. Another thing I wrote down was I used to put on headphones, turn out the lights, lay on the floor, and listen to music under headphones and like just take in all the sounds of the songs. And so that is one of my get back to number one forms of escapism. I'd say like right now, heavy on the music, pairing that with the movement. Some of the best ways to get out of the brain is to get into the body. So music, movement, and like letting my brain daydream, wander, visualize. So you and I are not surprisingly lined up on a lot of these.
Not surprisingly at all. And that reminds me of something I recently heard on social about weight training changes your brain chemistry, your hormones, and your self-perception in ways that directly support better mood, focus, and emotional regulation. It's one of the most evidence-backed antidepressants that doesn't come in a pill.
Ooh, I like that. Weight training, like
lifting weights.
Resistance
training. They also call it that, yeah.
I also think one of the many benefits of working out is building resistance, not just physically, but mentally. So for me, when I work out, I'm like, I'm doing this because I know it's good for me and I'm enjoying it to a degree, but there's times I'm like, this is hard. I don't like how heavy this weight is. My body feels tight or this or that. And there's like the chatter of like, I'm not really enjoying this. And sometimes I have to force myself to do it, but it's in those moments where I go, you're learning to get through something that is difficult. You're learning to strengthen your resiliency, and a lot of it is a mental resiliency. And lately, when I've been doing my bar classes, which I'm still doing, I've been practicing doing them from a more mentally still and calm place. Like, I hate push-ups. I will never do push-ups like willingly for fun. So when they come up in class, I'm now trying to do them from a calm place of like, you can do this. Wow, look at the ease of which you're able to do this now. And it's building mental fortitude.
Good job. Can you talk more about from a place of not holding on so tight, even just daily chores or just daily being?
Yeah, I think it hit me that I need to figure this out when I saw a video on social media of some girl saying, why do I do chores all so hurriedly? And it's like a video of her like wiping down the counter, but she's doing it in like rapid, intense movements with a towel, super very fast. And then she's going to like wash the dishes really intensely with a lot of force and intensity and speed. And I sent it to my mom and she was like, oh my gosh, I need to work on this. I'm like, well, I know who modeled it for me. I love you, Mom, but we can joke about it. She and I have that kind of relationship. We can joke. But it made me realize, oh my gosh, why do I do things from such a hurried, demanding plate, like
urgent.
Mostly hurried, urgent. Yeah, I think that was the word my mom used, like the sense of urgency. No one's gonna die if I slowly wipe the counter. Even practicing around the house. Can I wash the dishes from a slower, more rooted, grounded, like if you think of urgency, panic, anxiety, what's the opposite of that? Grounded, stable. One of my biggest goals is I want to be unshakable. I want to be so rooted and grounded where the things that we started talking about earlier in the episode, the level 10 stressors, we're human. It's going to stress us, but how can I have mental and emotional fortitude to know like we've already gone through some very difficult things. I've got what it takes. I can get through this. I don't like it. It doesn't mean you have to like the things that are happening in your world. But that resiliency.
That directly reminds me of something that came up in one of my therapy sessions. I had, as I mentioned, several level 10 stressors. Two of those level 10 stressors, one would have thought I would have responded one way to one and another way to the other, and I kind of responded in opposite ways. And my therapist said, well, if you've gone through something before and you have a reference point for how you dealt with it, the next time that comes up, you will respond as though, maybe you're not as concerned. Because you know you made it through it the last time. And if something is brand new, a brand new stressor that you've never been through before, you may respond perhaps a bit more scared, frantic, upset, because you have no frame of reference for it.
I'm with you on it. And we've talked about stoicism before too. Like, there's so much in the world we cannot control. We can control how we react, how we move forward, our emotional regulation. We have the ability to strengthen that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've got another one if you're ready to pivot.
I am. Mm-hmm.
We started with a couple like pretty deep ones. I would love to talk about the idea of an emergency bag. And I'm not talking about the bag you pack in the back of your closet if you want to leave your spouse quickly. It's not that kind of emergency bag. This is more of a mental health emergency bag. And ultimately, the idea here for healthy escapism is you could go to your bag and go through your bag and see if your bag has anything to offer you at that moment when you need to escape. That's the idea behind what we're talking about. Okay. Mm-hmm. So ideas of what might be in that bag, something for every one of the senses. So we'll start with the sense of smell, since you love that. I might choose to put a little essential oil in my bag. There's one that is a strawberry. That's not one you see very often. However, it takes me right back to like middle school for some reason.
I was going to say strawberry shortcake, all those like scratch and sniff things.
I just love it. Okay, so that is something I would put in my bag, and I might, open that, sniff it, see if it helps me at all. That might not even touch my situation, but it's going to be in the bag. So that's smell. And then something for touch, like maybe a stress ball. There's like so many cool stress balls on the market right now, like different levels of squishiness and whatnot. So something tactile I will put in this bag. I've got this like really cool book of like visionary art, I think they call it. They're paintings, I guess, and they're out of this world. Like, how did they even create that? So I might put that book in there. So that's something visual. So we've got visual, we've got smell, we've got tactile. Oh, Sour Patch Kids. Apparently, the sour taste can really snap you out of something. I've not tried this.
I've been hearing this a lot lately. Yeah, Trader Joe's, a little plug for them. They've got like sour jelly beans. And a friend of mine was like, when I feel anxious, I've been eating some sour jelly beans.
Oh.
Those warheads, those super sour warheads.
Oh my gosh.
And I realized that would be in my emergency bag as soon as you had mentioned it.
And I'm also going to sneak a Mountain Dew in there. But it's not going to be cold if it's just in a bag. So I might just keep the Mountain Dew in my water fridge and then
yeah,
know that I can access it. And then for auditory, maybe, interesting enough, earplugs. I've been sleeping with one earplug in recently. When I have that earplug in, and it's not one of the foam ones, my gosh, I hate those. These are like the pre-formed, almost like an earbud. It makes you feel almost cozy and like being enveloped into my own little world. So I'm going to put earplugs in there, and then I'm just going to read some other ideas that are here. Oh, something cold. They say something cold could be good. Maybe keeping an ice pack in the fridge that you know where it is. You could just take out and you could hold it, and it wouldn't be so abrasive. Yeah.
If my current is very stressful or something happens that like really feels like it's triggered fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whatever, like I'm in a very heightened emotional state, ever since I was little, I would go outside in the backyard and get cool, fresh air, breeze on my skin, face, and then like laying down in the grass and looking at the sky and the stars is like, from a young age, was like my like little escapism. And it doesn't even have to be an intense emotion. It's just like, maybe just like confused or feeling overwhelmed, or even one of those times when you can't even name the feeling. You're like, I don't even know. Going out back, laying in the grass, looking at the stars, especially if there's a breeze, that helps. But there's been times growing up in the winter, it's freezing. I would put a coat on and still just the cold, or like a run in the cold, or even cold rain running. If my system feels a bit flooded, there is science that supports the idea that the cold helps regulate your nervous system.
Yes. And I love that idea of looking at the stars, because that really can take you out. And I don't have a telescope, but if I did, that would be another thing that would be super cool to try, because talk about just getting outside of yourself.
You and I are kindreds in that way.
Aw.
I would love a telescope, yeah. It just makes you feel like the vastness of the world. It's where from a time I was a young kid, I always felt like that's where I could talk to God, the divine, your creator, what have you. But I don't feel so small that I feel unimportant. Yeah. So keep going. I like this.
This is a cool idea, like a note from a loved one that you might enjoy reading, or maybe a photo, an eye mask, an electrolyte packet, a protein-rich snack. These are some that I find a little less inspiring, but still, maybe you'll like them.
Weighted blanket. Have you tried that?
I want to.
What I read is the weight is important because it's the difference between you feeling less anxious and too heavy of a weight making you feel more anxious and like you're being buried alive.
What weight is yours, do you know?
I think mine's 10 pounds. And I've even put part of it on Charlie, and he seems to really like it. At times in life where I'm like, I'm really having a hard time sleeping or falling asleep, I will pull that out. I will say the first time I ever used it, I used it going to bed, and I was like, I hate this thing, and I feel like I'm dying.
Oh, no.
And I realized maybe let's just start when I'm not trying to fall asleep and just use it on the couch watching TV, but I got used to it. I do like it. There's something about it. It feels a bit like the way you described the headphones where it just feels like a kind of a little hug, and I'm curious if it mimics kind of that feeling when we're young and we're like swaddled.
There are also like, I don't know if they call them pods. Have you seen these? My social feeds know that I recently got diagnosed with ADHD, and so they're feeding me all the good ADHD stuff. And one of them is like, it's just like picture like a giant sock that you fit your entire body and like come up above your head even. Like,
oh my gosh,
like being swaddled
amazing.
as an adult. And they say like it really helps kids and adults with ADHD.
Right on.
Yeah, so the emergency bag can be different for everybody, and I honestly just need to probably put a little bit more thought into mine. But just the idea that exists is kind of cool.
If anyone has ever dealt with anxiety, let me restate that. If anyone has never dealt with anxiety, who are you? Can you please contact me? And can you please tell me what your existence is like? Because this is difficult for me to imagine. But for those who have dealt with anxiety, what I am understanding is just having a plan for the things that you're anxious about helps reduce the anxiety. An easy one, as an example, is like if you're worried about money, then like create a plan, create an emergency savings. That will take out that anxiety of like, oh no, if my car breaks down today, I would be in a lot of trouble. But if you have that emergency savings backup, you're like, okay, if my car breaks down today, I would not like it, but I do have an emergency savings to cover these things. So to me, what you're saying with the emergency bag, just knowing that you have something prepared for these stressors, whatever level, can already ease you so that when the stressors hit 8, 9, 10, level 10 stressors, you're like, I put a plan in place for this already. I know I have built up resilience over the years. I know I'm capable and strong. I don't like this. You don't have to like it. But you also, you have that emergency bag to go to. I think it's really smart.
Yes, and I'm realizing something else I would probably put in my bag, but also can be a separate category for what we're talking about, is like an art notebook. It's like a flip art notebook that's all blank, no lines, and a good set of markers. Last night, I doodled like 3 full pages, just like nonstop. I like literally couldn't stop doing it. And I was just like, I've got a lot of things to get out of my mind right now. And they're literally just lines and they don't look good. I just doodle without judgment because it doesn't matter. I just put colors down and marks down on the paper. Nobody's maybe even ever going to see it. And for some reason, my brain really likes that.
I think you told me that at least like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you motivated me to pick out a notebook and get it ready. And I got so far as to like decorate the front of the notebook.
Ooh, that's good.
And it still remains empty.
Oh my gosh. Do you have it?
Yes.
Can you make a mark on it during the podcast?
Oh my gosh, I should.
Because what you're going to prove is it is very hard to make the first mark in a notebook, especially for some of us. Some of us love a good notebook, and then we stare at it and go, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect.
It's funny because I don't know why I have perfectionism anxiety around it. I'll show you, Katie. Here it is. Here's my notebook.
Oh, heck yes. I love that. Well, explain to us your feeling. First of all, you've got a new notebook. You're excited about it. And what makes you hesitant to make a mark in it?
I just want everything to be like beautiful that I do. And it's funny because with music, I can play more. And I'm realizing I'm more left-brained than I have told myself all these years. I've been told that I'm pretty balanced left and right-brained, but I've always thought because I make music, I'm highly right-brained. And then I started thinking about the music that I do and the parts of music, and I even mix my own stuff. That is heavily left-brained. Mixing, production, anything technical. So music is where I've like played with my right-brained side. And then when I was young, I was pretty good at art. I was like in an enriched art class, but I was better at drawing from looking at something and drawing it. I'm so amazed at your brain, Katie, and wish so much my brain were like this, where I could do abstract artwork like you do. So the reason why this remains blank is I think, like, what do I put on there? And I always like skip past the first page because I think I'm like, the first page feels daunting because if I died and someone found this, they'd get to the first page and they could judge me just by that. So you're giving me a mini therapy session right now where I'm like,
no, I love it. Well, I think it's not everybody feels this way, but a lot of people do about new notebooks. And like, would you be willing to flip to the second page and like even just make a squiggle or a line or anything at all?
Totally.
Yes. Do it. Do it.
I used to do a lot more of these like fun little squiggly things, and I would connect them. And when I would doodle in school, again, bored, I would do stuff like this, Katie.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
So I think thank you for letting me have this experience. The anxiety has subsided. And I think I'll go back to my little squiggly doodly things because they're fun, and it will tap back into the right brain, which I'm really needing at this point in my life. I think this year has taught me a lot. There have been, Katie, as you know, I've had some level 10 stressors, or at least a very big level 10 stressor. And I'm really thankful for the experience to know this is what's going on with my brain, emotions, this, that, the other. I've learned a lot about myself through the struggle. I've really seen the people like you who are my core soul family come and support me through it all. And that's been incredibly healing to just know there are people who like love you through these moments. Talk about healthy escapism. We are communal beings. So I would definitely say like girl time or quality time with my husband or my family or my inner circle, or these dialogues. I guess maybe sometimes talking about the issue at hand is not escaping it, right? I'm such a verbal processor that I have to keep that crew very, very small with who I verbally process with. It's just also not appropriate I don't think it's good to just air your dirty laundry. But I'm realizing even in this dialogue with you that because I am a verbal processor, that's not escapism. It is actually just talking about the problem and pushing it more and more to the forefront. So because I do need to verbally process in order to like process through the scenario, knowing that I really need an emergency bag that helps me escape. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm thinking that maybe one needs to process before they can escape sometimes.
I think I would agree with that. I think we've established that you and I are very much like that. For the listeners, I think a lot of it's this self-awareness. Like only you listening know what you need. Even if you go to a doctor or a therapist, they only know what you're sharing.
The thing that comes to mind, and this might sound a little judgmental, and I'm sure I've done it too, is if you are numbing or escaping without dealing, and now maybe sometimes you need to do that and you'll circle back to the processing. But if you're just shoving it down, masking, numbing, I think it could lead to problems down the line, and maybe not right away.
To me, it's the difference with like survival. It's like when we're in survival mode, there's likely a higher need for escapism. But once you're out of that survival mode, to just continue to numb or push things off might not be the healthiest. And then if it feels like you're always in survival mode, that's where it might be a good time to seek professional help or help from your community. And I want to recognize there's cultural differences, generational differences in views with therapy. The answer isn't just therapy for everyone.
And if I can interject, I would say perspective. Because if you have been in survival mode for an extremely long time, you might need to check your perspective, because maybe something's out of whack. Which does lead me to another idea.
Go for it.
So I knew I needed to get punched in the face with perspective, and an organization I belong to has started a kind of like a community kitchen of sorts, where they serve meals to those that could use them for free 3 nights a week. So I volunteered to go there. Now, one of my level 10 stressors popped up and I had to go to the hospital, so I could not go volunteer the day that I was supposed to, but I'm going next week. And Blake did go, and he said it was a real eye-opener, a really good experience, and really good for shifting perspectives and realizing how good we have it. Now, I fully recognize that I had selfish motives volunteering. I wanted to get punched in the face with perspective. I wanted to gain the perspective that I couldn't seem to get out of my like little bubble here in the suburbs. But we're doing the best we can. So for volunteering for selfish reasons, okay, we start there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, just being honest.
No, it's good.
The other thing, and these opportunities aren't always there, but maybe being more aware of them. I did have an acquaintance who had said a few things that made me think that she might not have enough food, which is surprising in my circles. I'm a very middle-class suburban person where, you know, people around here, they just have enough food, and it's just not a thing I encounter very often. And so the first time I kind of got the hint that that might be happening, I just kind of was like, no, you're probably reading the situation wrong. And then the next time I was like, let's check in with her. You know, you don't want to hurt somebody's pride. You don't want to assume something. You don't want to offend anybody. And so I did reach out, and they did welcome some assistance, and we got them some assistance in a variety of different ways. And that was in the middle of some of these level 10 stressors I was running around for, but it was really good. I know she appreciated it because she is lovely and was thankful. That was not the purpose of doing it, but it also made me feel good to be able to get outside of my own issues for a moment, go do something that felt good. Is all that type of stuff selfish in a way? I don't know. Something to think about. So ultimately, having your eyes open enough to recognize when there could be a need that you could fill.
I have heard it said that if you're struggling with depression, one of the best things to do is to volunteer or to go find someone who needs help. And that could even be a thinking about someone in your life that you might remember, like, oh yeah, they're kind of going through a hard time. Let me just give them a call and see how they're doing. I feel like we can overcomplicate so much, but I know that when I was quite new to living in Los Angeles, I think it was a year, when my girl Heaven had passed away. And she was like kind of like a little sister, but maybe even like a daughter. She called me the mom she never had. And so when she passed, it really fractured me. And she was 19. I love you, Heaven girl. Thinking of you. I went into a massive amount of grief in a city where I didn't know many people. And the people I knew had different coping skills than me, more substance related. I even had someone say, like, I'm surprised that you don't medicate with substances because, yeah, I just feel my feelings very intensely. And I was like, but I want to feel them. I really want to feel the wide array of the human experience. And I am a big believer that if you numb the hard feelings, you also numb the beautiful feelings.
Whoa.
Big believer of that. So anyway, I was just going through it, and I ended up looking at things I could do, and I swung the pendulum the other way, and that's when I started looking at senior companions. If anyone's looking for something, a volunteer opportunity in your city, in your community, looking at being a senior companion, it's actually really sweet. And there was part of me that's like, will I face grief sooner again? Because I'd be working with someone at the other end of the age spectrum. And it was very cool. It taught me a lot. Katie, when you're talking about perspective, I'm like, just to be talking to someone from several generations older, you know, people who've gone through the Depression. This woman that I worked with is a Holocaust survivor. And hearing her stories, even when she was talking about giving birth, they didn't have the technologies we have. She did not know she was pregnant with twins. So she went into labor, had a baby, and the doctor said, keep pushing. And she said, why are you being so cruel to me? And he's like, you have another baby. You have twins. And she's like, doctor, what do you do? Just things like that. And you gain this perspective where you're like, I can't even conceive of a world like that now because we have all these advances. I feel like I got so much healing by this relationship with this other woman.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I have one little one, and I've never tried it, but I want to, and that's getting a virtual reality headset, whether it's to do like the activities or just some random stuff in there. I've only ever had one on one time for like 4 seconds, and it was amazing.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't mine, so I had to like give it back, and then I was like, I need to get one of these because I think that would be a great way to escape in a healthy way.
That's cool. Now you have me thinking like of more outlandish ones. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I think we should just have some like quick hit ones. Another one is get out of the house, drive somewhere.
Change your environment.
Yeah, like go to Target and walk, even if you don't need anything. Like don't buy anything if you don't need anything, but like get out of the house or make an appointment. I told you earlier, I'm going to my first bar class tomorrow and I have an appointment. I have to be there at 11 or they will be mad.
Yes.
Comedy. So watching comedy specials on a streaming service.
That's what I wrote down.
Oh, sorry, I stole yours.
No, keep going. Comedy specials.
Even like a Spotify channel or a Pandora channel with comedy can be so good.
I realized, because Jesse and I take turns with like who picks a movie. And when it's just been like a day, I'm like, can I please pick? And they usually go to my like 80s or 90s comedies. I will just throw out if people need somewhere to start. The obvious is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yes. But Hear No Evil, See No Evil with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. Oh, so good. Mr. Mom, ooh. So good.
Ooh.
They're just like so light and wholesome and very funny. I think those ones like hold up and maintain, and there's nothing too like problematic in it.
Well, I have one that might have problematic stuff that we just mentioned and have not watched for decades, but we're going to. So forgive me if this is not okay anymore, but Encino Man.
I watched that recently too. It's so good.
You did? I'm going to watch it soon.
Yes.
Wheeze in the Juice.
Wheeze in the Juice. Oh, Sister Act? Ooh. Yeah, I'll say Sister Act 1 and 2. I made Jesse watch Sister Act 1, and I thought it was adorable because he's a filmmaker, and he's like, wow, the lighting in this is actually really good. I was like, see? And I also wrote down along the lines of humor, what I would physically put in my emergency bag that represents humor is Mad Libs.
Oh, yes. Oh, good one.
You know, every now and then it's a miss, but I think hands down the best live music performance I ever did was when, I almost don't want to say it because I don't want people stealing my idea, but I guess if you steal my idea, it means that you listen to the podcast, so I'll give it to you. I did a live performance where I asked the audience for the nouns, adjectives, verbs, whatever, and a Mad Libs, and I made up a song on the spot using the lyrics from Mad Libs, and I still think it was the best crowd pleaser ever, so don't know what that says about my music, but it's all right.
I love that. I did that in a team building exercise at work, and it was tremendous.
Yes.
It was really good. Yeah. One of the best little corporate moments, if you will.
We got to find ways to get through this world, right?
Yes. And I have one more quick hit one, and that is mushroom-infused drinks, the legal ones like Lion's Mane mushroom drinks.
Yeah.
I put that in the category of healthy escapism because it's completely legal, and it's like taking a supplement that calms you down.
An adaptogen?
Yeah, and it feels social and lovely.
I've been going with lemon balm.
Oh, yeah.
Lemon balm tincture is supposed to be a good like nervine, and nervines mean it's like calming to your nerves, your nervous system. Because there are other ones that have like contraindications based on other things in people's lives, but always do your research. Big disclaimer of we are not medical practitioners, but yeah.
No, we are not. When you said nervines, it reminds me there's this great herbalist on YouTube. I watched a bunch of her videos and she talks about nervines, but that leads me to thinking about hyperfixations where when you have ADHD, you tend to have hyperfixations where you're super interested in something and you learn everything you can and then you move on to something else. And so even if you're not ADHD, maybe a healthy escapism route for you is to hyperfixate on something like learning about herbs on YouTube, do that for a weekend or an evening, and then move on to something else. There's nothing saying you can't just learn everything that you want and then be done and move on. It's totally okay. I've even talked about it in therapy, and all of my therapists have said that that's okay. I don't have to follow through. I can just learn and then move on. It's fine.
I think that's a great call out. I really like giving yourself permission to just start and stop, or to experiment, or to try something new.
I think for me, like inspiration is just a big thing for me. So maybe that's even another one.
Tell me more. I like where you're going.
You know I would love to. So things that inspire me, it was Chaperone's performance on one of the award shows of Pink Pony Club. So like big surprise and delight moments. Being in a theater and hearing like an all-consuming sound in your ears. Like the larger than life feeling you get at a concert where you've been listening to these songs for years, maybe on CD or your digital devices, and then you hear them live. Like you're hearing so much more substance in that sound, and I don't have words for what the technicality is of that, but just feeling that in your soul, for me, that's inspiring. Watching somebody do something that they are incredible at is inspiring. Watching, like the show Shrinking, I don't know, do you watch that show?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Oh my God. Everything about that show is, the writing is amazing. The actors are amazing. The storyline is both sad and funny. Like, I don't like anything sad, but I will watch that show because I'm like, dang it, that is good. So that show inspires me. Watching comedians that are truly hysterical inspires me. Listening to great music that is great in my opinion, because everybody's opinion is different. Great music inspires me. And seeing beautiful art inspires me. And sometimes, depending where I'm at, certain types of nature can really inspire me, especially in the fall time. For like the fresh air inspires me somehow. Like everything's going to be okay when you breathe in that fall time air in the eastern part of the United States anyway, northeast.
I agree with you.
How about you?
Yeah, the fresh air for me links back to like going outside and looking at the vastness of the sky. There's just something like very comforting about that vastness. And then again, the cool air for sure. I do miss East Coast falls. That's like my favorite. Just like the crisp smell of the air. When you mentioned Shrinking, I would love to share something from that TV show.
Yes.
That my therapist had told me probably a decade prior. I had started therapy when I worked with youth because it was suggested, highly recommended, to find a therapist who specialized in vicarious trauma, because we were working alongside youth with complex trauma, and there is such thing as vicarious trauma, or it can be called secondary or tertiary trauma. And I want to call out, when we witness traumatic things even on our phones, we could be watching something happening in another country, but watching it on our phones or on the news, if you feel really heavy after that, that's likely the result of vicarious trauma. If that helps to hear that is a very common reaction. And if you're experiencing that, maybe exploring ways to help deal with that grief.
Also, consider what you're consuming.
Yeah, in terms of escapism, I think everything in life is a delicate balance in this human existence. And there's something about like, I want to be informed, the importance of us being informed. Katie, you mentioned that, like the importance of getting out of like the suburbs and witnessing, you know, some sobering realities of other people's life, like food scarcity. So that is important. Also, depending on what's going on in your life, it might not be helpful to start consuming media that is just showing you the crap of the world. So we say this gently, that you are the only person that can determine how to hold it all or what to hold at any given moment, which is a nice segue into the shrinking piece. When I had started therapy, a lot of it was around grief, and a lot of it was around grief of things not yet fulfilled or other losses in life. And something my therapist said, they mention in shrinking. Love my therapist. If you're listening, oh, you're just a blessing in my life. She said, give grief boundaries. Give it boundaries. You can even name it as grief. When you name something like an emotion, it depersonalizes it. Instead of it being my grief, it is just grief. Or give it a name. They even say that negative voice in your head. You can give it a name, like negative Nancy. You and I are not friends right now. But it helps to separate you from the feeling. And she said, give grief boundaries. And you can say like, all right, grief, I'm going to feel you full on out for like the next 10 minutes. You'll be there for later if I need to access you, but I have things to do in my day. I got to go to work. I got to show up for my family. I got to show up for myself. I'm giving you boundaries. I'm going to feel you fully for this amount of time, and then I'm going to put you on a shelf. And you're there on the shelf. I can access that grief. I think when we lose a loved one, we often feel shame for ever feeling joy. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't feel joy. I lost this massive part of my life. Then that makes me want to cry because it's like your loved one would want you to feel joy. Anyway, giving grief boundaries. And then in shrinking, Katie, you might remember where it's largely about grief. And one of the therapists suggests to the young girl who had lost her mom to essentially give grief boundaries by putting on a song. And she chooses a song, and for the length of that song, she feels it all. And then when the song's done, boop, on with your day.
Yep, and I just watched that scene the other day. I think it was Harrison Ford tells the daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, and you see her doing it, and it's brilliant. It's so smart.
I love our dialogues because we go from talking about like a, seemingly lighter conversation of healthy escapism, but to talk about healthy escapism, you have to almost talk about the depths that you're escaping. And so another big call out I want to make is, for me, an indicator that it would be a good time to look at my escapism tools is if I start isolating. Isolation, I think, is one of the most dangerous places we can go as humans because we are communal. And so if you find yourself starting to isolate, that may be a very good indicator to reach out to someone, because once we isolate, that's where I feel like we can really get pulled under, and we think that we have to do it all by ourselves.
Great note.
You're not alone.
No.
Oh, can I say one more thing that I learned in therapy recently? My therapist mentioned, instead of trying harder, what if you tried softer?
Can you imagine if everybody did that? Like what that would change in the world? Mm-hmm. Unreal. Yeah.
A bit more care for each other and a bit more care for ourselves at the same time. Just that reminder, I think we've said it before on this, but we never know what other people are walking around with. You have beautifully let me into your world, that I know the level 10 stressors going on in your life as you do mine. But most people don't.
Right.
And so then scaling that out, how many people do I love and care about? Or how many strangers are there that I, care about just for the sake of caring about humanity, that I don't know what they're going through. I always think of the person at the register, like checkout register. And I remember when I was going through having lost someone, and at the grocery store checkout line, thinking this person has so much power to just like make or break my day right now. Yeah.
And then conversely, what if it was the checkout person going through something, and
Yeah.
they could be scared that any given person going through their line could make or break them.
Yeah. And you think of especially people, customer service jobs where it's like, this is a good reminder as we go into the holidays that are supposed to be about cheer. How many times around the holidays do you see people like honking their horn, or like those Tickle Me Elmo stampedes, people like fighting over a toy for their kid, and people actually losing their lives because of that? Friends, let's just go into the holidays with a lot more compassion and care.
Try softer, not harder. I love that so much.
Try softer.
Would you be open to me attempting a recap?
I would love that.
Okay, so if you've made it this far, congratulations. Hopefully you've learned a few things. I know I have. I'm going to attempt to recap the things that we have touched on. These are all ways that we can try to achieve healthy escapism. First, we want to consider reducing our hedonic adaptation, meaning that we want our happier times to last longer, and we don't want to get numb to life so quickly. So Mark Manson taught us to diversify our dreams. We talked about how having long-term goals that make you giddy, like getting an MFA, and maybe having a checklist where you have to buy some art materials, can be really a satisfying and distracting way to deal with a stressful time. Allowing yourself to dream, and how Lex likes to sometimes do that by wearing headphones, laying down on the floor in a dark room and listening to music. We talked about how music combined with movement can really help instigate that dreaming, maybe if you feel blocked. We talked about having an emergency bag, one for your mental health, and it could contain something for all the senses, and it's different for every person. We also talked about how having a plan for an emergency, like an emergency financial fund, can really help just ease your mind in stressful times. We talked about doodling, and Lex did an epic job of making a mark in her clean notebook that she was stressed out about making a mark in, so good job, Lex. We talked about volunteering and having just your eyes open to seeing that someone might be in need and acting on that. Maybe you could look into senior companions or working with youth to get outside of yourself and gain perspective. We talked about virtual reality headsets, getting out of the house, making an appointment so somebody is expecting you somewhere, comedy, 80s and 90s movies specifically, Mad Libs, mushroom drinks, hyperfixations. We talked about giving yourself permission to try new things. We talked about puzzles. We talked about inspiration, the show Shrinking. And then we talked about vicarious trauma. Be careful of what you consume. And friends, I'm not sure we and our brains were built to handle the weight of the world. We talked about grieving. We talked about grieving the things that are not yet fulfilled, and giving grief boundaries, naming your grief, and an exercise of allowing yourself to feel that grief strongly for 10 minutes or the length of a song, and then put it on a shelf where you can access it anytime, but then moving on with your life so that you feel like you have honored both the grief and the things you want to do. Be careful of isolating yourself, and instead of trying harder, try softer. How'd I do?
You did great summarizing that. You summarized that so well.
Thanks for this podcast, Lex. Because of you, myself and hopefully some others are learning things, so thank you.
Likewise, I'm learning through the process as well. Katie and I are not here as like little demigods thinking we have the answers and know the right or wrong things for people. It's just an exploration of like what's worked for us, what's not worked for us, what might be working, and just a dialogue. And so just really grateful to you for being present for these dialogues and doing life alongside of me.
No, thank you. So I'm going to end with a blessing. Here we go. May your end of year be filled with softer moments. May you listen closer to your loved ones and make a conscious effort to limit the noise of negativity. May you look at others through a lens of compassion, acknowledging that you do not know what is going on in another's life. May you default to kindness both to others and to yourself. May your sleep be infused with restoration and your mornings stand with anticipation for what's to come.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for listening this year. Thanks for visiting, and we will see you in the new year.
See you next year. Bye.
Thanks for visiting.